Police kept finding old ticking clocks beside the victims, but none of them belonged to the victims themselves. At first, they thought it was coincidence, until the clocks started counting backwards. And when the fourth clock appeared without a body, the entire town realized something terrifying. The killer wasn't just leaving a message, he was counting down to something bigger. Welcome to Crime Scene Explained. If you're fascinated by chilling mysteries, dark psychology, and crime stories that keep you guessing until the very end, you're in the right place. Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and drop a comment with your theory, because this story will leave you questioning every tick of the clock in your own home. It started the way most crimes do, quietly. On a fog-heavy morning in rural Pennsylvania, police received a 911 call from a jogger who'd spotted something unusual near the riverbank. At first, dispatch assumed it was another false alarm. People mistake mannequins, piles of clothes, even large bags of trash for bodies. But when officers arrived, they knew instantly this was no mistake. The victim was a young woman in her 20s. No ID, no witnesses, no sign of struggle. But what made this case different wasn't the victim herself. It was what lay beside her. An antique clock. Brass hands. Wooden casing. Still ticking. Now, police find strange things at crime scenes all the time. Wallets, jewelry, even deliberate calling cards from killers who want to taunt investigators. But this clock was odd for a simple reason. It didn't belong to the victim. The family later confirmed she had no such item, no history of collecting antiques, no reason for it to be there at all. That was the first puzzle. The second? The time. The hands were frozen at exactly 3:17 a.m. Detectives immediately logged it as evidence. Some thought it might just be coincidence. Maybe the killer used the clock to bludgeon her. Maybe it had no significance. But for others on the force, especially Detective Sarah Mallory, who had been on the job for nearly 12 years, the ticking was personal. She couldn't shake it. She said later in interviews that the sound felt like a countdown. And here's where I want to bring you in. Think about this. If you were the investigator, what would you assume the clock meant? A taunt? A signature? A warning? Drop your theories in the comments. I want to see how many of you would have caught on before the detectives did. Because one thing's for sure, this was no ordinary murder. For weeks, the investigation went nowhere. They canvassed the area, interviewed locals, checked pawn shops and antique dealers for someone who might have sold or owned the clock. Nothing. Until it happened again. The second body was found just 19 days later. Same county, different side of town. This time, a middle-aged man. And again, beside him, a clock. Same design. Same old-fashioned wood frame, still ticking. Only this time, the time on the clock was different. 4:02 a.m. Now detectives knew this wasn't random. 2 clocks, 2 murders, same type of antique, same eerie placement right next to the victim. And here's the detail that chilled investigators. Both clocks were ticking in reverse. Not forwards, backwards. By this point, the FBI was looped in. Analysts tried to determine if the clocks were part of a rare collection, maybe a local craftsman's work, or even custom-made. Forensics came back with frustrating results. No prints, no DNA, nothing linking the objects to a suspect. Whoever left them there knew exactly what they were doing. Detective Mallory told the press it was like chasing smoke. Every time they thought they had a lead, it evaporated. But the killer wasn't finished. Now pause with me for a moment. Imagine you're living in this town. News breaks that 2 people have been killed, each with a bizarre ticking clock left behind. Would you feel safe walking home at night? Would you start noticing the ticking of every wall clock in your house differently? That's exactly what happened. People were terrified. Hardware stores reported an unusual surge of customers taking clocks out of their homes. Some even smashed them, saying the ticking made them think of death. The fear spread faster than the investigation. And then came the third body. This time it was a teenager, 17 years old, found just outside her high school, a block from where her friends said she was waiting for a ride home. And there it was, another clock. But this one was different. Instead of antique brass hands, the clock face had been painted over with thick black marker. Written across it, in jagged letters, was a single word: time. Detectives were baffled. Was this an escalation? A new stage in the killer's ritual? Or was it a copycat trying to stir chaos? For the first time, police released the detail about the clocks to the public. The news ran with it, dubbing the perpetrator the Timekeeper. And once the name stuck, so did the fear. People started whispering theories. Some said the killer was obsessed with time travel. Others thought it was a message about fate, about inevitability. But here's where things get more disturbing. When forensic experts took apart all three clocks, they noticed something chilling. The internal gears had been tampered with. The clocks weren't just ticking backwards randomly. They were set to count down exactly 1 hour before the victim's estimated time of death. Think about that. Someone deliberately engineered these clocks, knowing when the murders would happen, and left them as a signature. It wasn't chance. It wasn't an accessory. It was a message. Detective Mallory said the discovery gave her nightmares. She started seeing clocks everywhere, on billboards and waiting rooms, even in her own kitchen. And every time she heard that faint ticking, she wondered, who's next? By now, the public was demanding answers. The mayor called an emergency press conference. Parents pulled their kids from schools. Local businesses shut early, warning employees not to be out past dark. The whole town felt like it was on curfew. And just when police thought they might calm the storm, another clock appeared. But this time, no body. A fourth clock was found placed in the middle of Main Street, standing upright like someone had carefully set it there, still ticking, still counting down. The question was simple. Counting down to what? The first body was horrifying. The second proved it was no coincidence. The third escalated into a message. And now, a clock without a body. Tell me in the comments, what do you think the countdown means? A warning to the next victim, or something far bigger? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story as we proceed, because things are about to get darker. A suspect finally emerges, but the truth is far more twisted than anyone expects. The fourth clock rattled everyone, not just because it was left in plain sight, but because there was no body. For the first time, police wondered if this wasn't a murder at all, but a threat, a promise of what was coming. The countdown on the clock read 72 hours, 3 days. That's all the time investigators had before what exactly? Another victim? Or something even worse? Detective Sarah Mallory stared at the ticking numbers, her hands shaking, as she realized the killer wasn't just choosing victims anymore. He was controlling the entire town. Police doubled their patrols. The FBI set up command posts. News stations swarmed Main Street. Cameras pointed directly at the clock as if it were a bomb counting down. And to some, that's exactly what it looked like. But here's where it gets stranger. The clock stopped. Not after 72 hours, not at some gruesome crime scene. It just stopped. No victim, no body, nothing. And that's when the first suspect came into play. Detectives began retracing the origin of the clocks, hoping for any lead. And finally, they caught one, a local antique dealer named Edward Pike. He admitted he had seen clocks like these before. He said a man came into his shop months earlier, asking about old grandfather clocks, pocket watches, anything that could be rewired or altered. He never gave his real name, but Pike remembered one detail clearly. He wore gloves, even in the summer heat. Detectives jumped on the lead. They searched through security footage, cross-referenced customer logs, and even ran sketches based on Pike's memory. And then, something odd happened. The dealer's own shop burned down. No alarms, no suspects, no evidence, just ash. Inside, investigators found something half-burned, hidden beneath a collapsed beam. A clock. This one was unlike the others. The numbers weren't just running backwards, they were spinning wildly, uncontrollably, like the clock itself was unraveling. Was this the killer's work? A warning to the dealer? Or was the dealer himself the one orchestrating all of it, now trying to cover his tracks? Pause for a second. What do you think? Was Edward Pike a terrified witness? Or was he lying all along, hiding in plain sight as the Timekeeper? Let me know in the comments, because your theory might match what investigators were about to uncover. The FBI placed Pike under surveillance. His phone was tapped, his home watched, every move monitored. And still, another body turned up. This time in the woods on the edge of town. A young man, early 20s. Same setup, same clock. But here's the difference. This clock had no hands at all, just a face painted completely black. Investigators took that as a message. Time's up. At this point, paranoia spread like wildfire. Residents stopped leaving their homes. Curfews became unofficial law. Some families even packed up and left town overnight, abandoning their houses like a ghost town. The press had a field day. The clockwork killer, the Timekeeper, the man who stopped time. Headlines screamed across the country. And with pressure mounting, the police did what they always do when panic rises. They made an arrest. Edward Pike, the antique dealer, was dragged into custody. Detective Mallory sat across from Pike in the cold gray interview room. You knew about the clocks, you supplied them, you burned your own shop down. Why? She asked. Pike leaned forward, eyes wide, sweat dripping down his forehead. I didn't make them, he whispered. I tried to destroy them. What do you mean, destroy? Mallory asked. They don't belong to me. They don't belong to anyone. They just show up. He slammed his hand on the table, trembling. You don't understand. The clocks don't just tell time. They decide it. Before detectives could press further, a uniformed officer burst into the room. His face was pale, his hands shaking as he held out a slip of paper. Another clock had been found. But this one wasn't beside a victim. It was sitting on Detective Mallory's desk, still ticking. The antique dealer claims the clocks are more than evidence, that they decide time itself. The police think he's a suspect, but the clocks keep appearing even while he's in custody. And now, one has been delivered directly to the lead detective. What do you think it means? Is she the next target? Or is the killer sending her a different kind of message? I want to know your thoughts. The interrogatory room went silent as the officer set the paper on the table. Detective Mallory picked it up with trembling fingers. Scribbled in black ink was a single sentence. it's already too late. The words had been tucked inside the newest clock, the one found sitting directly on her desk. Mallory's throat went dry. She hadn't left her office unlocked. Only a handful of people even had access. Whoever delivered that clock knew exactly where she worked, where she sat, where her files were stacked. It wasn't just a threat, it was a message. The killer was watching her. Forensics rushed the clock to the lab. That's when things got even stranger. No fingerprints, no DNA, not even dust. It was as though the clock had materialized out of thin air. But the truly impossible part, the internal mechanism contained gears manufactured in 1902, antique, ancient. Yet the wood casing was brand new, freshly cut within the last few weeks. It was a Frankenstein creation, old parts stitched into new bodies. Detective Mallory stared at the evidence log, her mind racing. Who could be building these, and why target her now? Meanwhile, Edward Pike, the antique dealer in custody, grew more frantic by the hour. "You've got it wrong," he shouted at Mallory during a second interrogatory. "I didn't build them. I tried to destroy them. They always come back. You can smash them, burn them, bury them. It doesn't matter. The clocks find their way back." Mallory wanted to dismiss it as the ravings of a guilty man, but the look in his eyes unsettled her. It wasn't the smugness of a killer. It was the terror of someone who believed every word he said. And then Pike leaned forward, lowering his voice to a whisper. "You think you're hunting him, but you're wrong. He's hunting you." Pause here for a second. If you were Detective Mallory, would you believe Pike, or assume it was all manipulation to throw investigators off? Drop your theory in the comments, because I'll be watching to see who would have trusted their gut over the evidence. That night, Mallory went home uneasy. She triple-checked her locks, pulled the blinds, even left her service weapon on the nightstand, but still, she couldn't sleep. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the same time frozen on the very first victim's clock, she woke to a sound. Tick, tick, tick. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She turned her head slowly toward the dresser. Nothing. She got out of bed, weapon in hand, sweeping the room. Still nothing. And then from the hallway, she saw it. A faint glow under the crack of her front door. Mallory approached cautiously, gun raised. When she pulled open the door, the street outside was empty, except for one thing. A clock, sitting on her doorstep, still ticking. By morning, another call came in, another body. This time, a retired school teacher, beloved in the community, found in her kitchen, slumped over the table as if she'd fallen asleep while grading papers. And yes, the clock was there. But this one was different. It wasn't counting backwards. It wasn't spinning. It wasn't painted black. It had no hands at all. Just an empty circle of glass. Almost like it was waiting for something. Detective Mallory couldn't shake the dread building in her chest. She returned to the station late that night, exhausted, clutching the case files. And as she dropped the stack onto her desk, she froze. The clock that had been taken to the evidence room, the one from her desk, was gone. In its place, someone had left a note. Scrawled in jagged handwriting were 3 words. "You are next." The clocks are no longer just at crime scenes. They're targeting Detective Mallory directly. The dealer insists they can't be destroyed, And now the killer has delivered a personal threat. So here's my question for you. Do you think Mallory is the real target all along? Or is she being manipulated into thinking that, while the killer hunts elsewhere? Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button as we proceed. Detective Sarah Mallory barely slept after finding the note, "You are next." By morning, the entire precinct was buzzing. Some officers insisted Pike had orchestrated the whole thing, planting fear in her mind from inside his cell. Others whispered that the case had taken on something darker, almost supernatural. Mallory didn't believe in ghosts, but she did believe in patterns. And so far, every clock had carried one. Until now. The handless clock from the school teacher's kitchen sat in the evidence room like a taunt. Forensics had no explanation. The glass face was perfectly clean, polished, as if someone had gone out of their way to erase time itself. Mallory couldn't stop staring at it, an empty circle, no beginning, no end. And then something happened. Right there, under the fluorescent lights of the evidence room, the clock began to tick. Even without hands, the faint click of gears echoed inside its wooden frame. Mallory dropped it in shock, but when another officer rushed over, the sound was gone. Imagine standing in a locked room, hearing a clock tick that isn't supposed to tick. Would you think you were losing your mind, or that someone was deliberately pushing you there? Let me know in the comments, because this is where Mallory herself begins to question her sanity. The media got hold of the note left on Mallory's desk. Somehow the words "You are next" were leaked to the press. Overnight, the headlines shifted. Timekeeper targets lead detective. Killer taunts police with direct threat. Is Mallory the next victim? Every reporter in the state swarmed her house, her office, even her family's doorstep. The pressure was unbearable. But what broke her most was a single phone call. An elderly man's voice rasped on the other end. "You're not listening, detective. The clocks don't mark death. They mark debt." Then the line went dead. In the interrogation room, Edward Pike finally snapped. Slamming his fists against the table, he shouted, "You're wasting time. He's not killing randomly. He's settling scores." She demanded he explain. Pike broke down, trembling, confessing that decades ago he'd been part of a secret society of collectors who dabbled in timepieces with history. Not just antiques, but clocks tied to violent events, wars, murders, tragedies. The clocks don't just measure time, they carry it. Every tick holds what came before, and when someone rewinds them, the past bleeds into the present. She scoffed, but part of her felt the truth in his words. That night, Mallory returned home exhausted and paranoid. She poured herself a glass of whiskey, sat on the couch, and tried to steady her hands. Then her phone buzzed. A text message. No number, just words. "Look outside." Her stomach dropped. She moved to the window, pulled the curtain aside, and froze. Lined across her front lawn, placed neatly in a row, were 6 clocks, all ticking in unison, all counting down. And this time, for the first time, the countdown wasn't measured in hours. It was in minutes. Mallory stumbled backward, phone clattering from her hand. The countdown read 15 mins. What happens when the clocks hit zero? Another victim? A bomb? Or is the target finally her? The Timekeeper has gone from eerie calling cards to a direct, terrifying countdown aimed squarely at Detective Mallory. So tell me, if you were in her shoes, would you call the bomb squad, run, or face the clocks head-on? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Mallory's heart slammed against her ribs as the clocks outside her window ticked in eerie harmony. Each minute hand crept forward, every tick a drumbeat of dread. She forced herself to breathe, to steady her thoughts, but the truth clawed at her. This wasn't just another message. This was a deadline. Mallory grabbed her phone and dialed dispatch. Her voice shook as she demanded backup, a bomb squad, anyone available. Within minutes, red and blue lights filled her street. Neighbors were ushered from their homes, reporters crowded behind barricades, cameras flashing like vultures circling. The bomb unit approached the clocks with trembling hands, scanning for explosives. But the devices were hollow, empty shells. No wires, no C4, no triggers, just ticking. Always ticking. And yet, as the final minutes drained away, Mallory felt a cold certainty. The real danger wasn't inside the clocks. It was already in motion. Somewhere else. With 1 minute left, Pike was dragged from his cell to the precinct's secure room for questioning. He laughed when Mallory stormed in. "You still don't see it," he said, grinning through broken teeth. "The clocks don't mark where, they mark when." And then the city shook. Not outside her house, not near the row of clocks, but across town in the courthouse where a high-profile trial was underway. A deafening blast split the night sky, fire blooming upward as screams filled the airwaves. The countdown hadn't been a warning to Mallory. It had been a diversion. Sirens screamed. Chaos consumed the city. News helicopters swirled overhead, broadcasting the inferno live. Mallory sank into a chair, realization crashing down. She hadn't stopped the killer. She hadn't even slowed him. The Timekeeper had used her as a pawn, dragging every eye to her doorstep while he struck his real target. As officers scrambled, Mallory's phone buzzed again. Another message. A photo this time. The courthouse engulfed in flames. And in the foreground, sitting on the courthouse steps, was another clock. Not counting down, not ticking, just waiting. Underneath the photo, a single line. "This debt is far from settled." Mallory stared at the screen, fists clenched, fury and fear twisting inside her. The Timekeeper wasn't done, and the next countdown had already begun. The courthouse still smoldered, smoke hanging over the city like a bruise. Mallory's phone hadn't stopped ringing. Calls from superiors, reporters, politicians demanding answers. But the only call she cared about was the one that had ended with silence. The elderly voice. "The clocks don't mark death, they mark debt." It gnawed at her, a riddle she couldn't shake. Back at headquarters, Mallory dug into the archives Pike had hinted at. Old, sealed files buried beneath decades of dust. Many were labeled Artifacts Division, a branch she'd never even heard of. The deeper she dug, the more unsettling the evidence became. Newspaper clippings about auctions where clocks exchanged hands for millions. Photos of clocks recovered at crime scenes stretching back a century. Names of secret collectors, some judges, some bankers, even a senator. and one file that chilled her to the bone. Her father's name was on it. Here's where I want your theories. If you found your own family tied to a line of murders and cursed objects, would you expose it to the world or bury it forever to protect their legacy? Let me know your thoughts below, because this is the exact crossroads Mallory finds herself standing on. Late that night, Mallory confronted Pike again. His face was gaunt, eyes hollow, but when she slammed the file on the table, his grin returned. "I told you," he rasped. "You can't escape the circle. Your bloodline is already written into the clocks." Mallory snapped. "My father had nothing to do with this." Pike leaned forward, whispering, "Every detective who's ever chased the Timekeeper, they were never just investigators. They were inheritors." Before Mallory could press him further, another message pinged her phone. This time, not a photo, a video. It showed a dim-lit room lined with clocks. In the center sat a table, and on it a pocket watch spinning slowly. The camera zoomed in on its cover, etched with a symbol she recognized from her father's old belongings, a serpent devouring its own tail. The Ouroboros, the endless cycle. And beneath the symbol, words burned into the metal. Time is owed. Time will be paid. Mallory's knees buckled. If Pike was telling the truth, if her own bloodline was tied to this, then she wasn't just chasing the Timekeeper. She might become one. Mallory didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. The Ouroboros symbol haunted her like a shadow she couldn't shake. Her father's face, stern, distant, always half hidden behind his work, flashed through her mind. He had died when she was 17. She had grieved him as an absent man, but never as a conspirator. Now, she wasn't sure which hurt more, the loss of a parent, or the suspicion that he had been part of something monstrous. Mallory returned to her childhood home, a modest brick house her mother had sold years ago. She bribed the new owner for an hour alone in the basement. Dust, cobwebs, boxes stacked like coffins. She tore through them until her hands closed on a leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age. Inside, neat handwriting filled the pages. Her father's handwriting. He wrote about debts and balances, about being chosen as the watcher of the hour, about resisting the pull of the circle. And then a line that made Mallory's stomach knot. The clocks do not count lives, they count lineage. Here's where I want your input. Imagine you discover your parent has been part of a secret society tied to killings for decades. Would you run from the truth or dive into it to stop the cycle? Let me know in the comments, because Mallory now faces that very decision. Folded in the back of the journal was an old black and white photograph. Her father, much younger, stood among a group of men in dark suits and women in veils. They were posed inside a clockmaker's workshop. Behind them, a wall of clocks, all set to different times. But one face in the photograph froze Mallory's breath. Pike. Not a younger version, not altered. The same man she had arrested weeks ago. Mallory rushed back to Pike's cell, slamming the photo against the glass. "How is this possible?" she demanded. He only smiled, his lips cracked, but his eyes gleaming. "Time doesn't move the same way for us, detective. That's why you'll never catch me. You don't even know what you are yet." Mallory's voice broke. "I'm nothing like you. You already are, and when the next clock strikes, you'll understand." At that exact moment, Mallory's phone buzzed again. Another photo, this one of her father's gravestone, and sitting at its base, perfectly centered, was a ticking clock. Rain slicked the gravestone grass as Mallory pushed through the iron gates. The storm above rumbled as though the heavens themselves disapproved of her search. Her flashlight beam cut across rows of tilted headstones until it froze on one. Daniel Mallory, 1958 to 2005. Her father. At the base of the stone, just as the photo had shown, sat an old mantel clock. Its pendulum swung lazily, tick-tock, tick-tock, like a heartbeat buried in wood. Mallory crouched down, hand trembling, and flipped the clock over. No bomb, no mechanism, just a folded piece of paper shoved inside the hollow back. The letter was dated the year of his death. The handwriting was unmistakable. "My dearest Mallory, if you are reading this, the circle has found you. I tried to shield you from it, but blood calls to blood. The clocks will not stop. They never do. You must choose to serve the hour or break it. But know this, those who tried to break it before you were erased, not just from life, but from memory. Forgive me for what I was and what you must become. Father." Mallory dropped the paper, her chest tightening. Her father hadn't been ignorant. He had been part of it willingly. "Now, I need your theories. Do you think Mallory's father really tried to protect her, or was he grooming her to take his place all along? Comment your thoughts, because this changes everything. And that's where we'll leave Mallory for now. Her world has been shattered. Her father's secrets, Pike's impossible presence in that old photograph, and the chilling letter at the grave. Was her father protecting her from the circle, or was he preparing her to join it? This is the end of part 1 of Mallory's story. But we're not done yet. In part 2, the clocks strike again, and Mallory will discover just how deep the Ouroboros runs. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, and drop your theories in the comments. Was her father shielding her, or was he grooming her all along? Because trust me, the next part will change everything. Tick-tock.